Just moments after the courtroom doors closed and Kay Flock's shocking sentence became official, chaos reportedly followed him behind bars. What many fans feared has now become reality. Jail violence erupted almost immediately, turning an already devastating sentence into something far darker. Sources claim tensions were high the moment Kay Flock entered custody, with rival affiliations, street politics, and his high-profile name instantly putting a target on his back. This wasn't just another inmate transfer. This was a powder keg waiting to explode. For years, Kay Flock's name carried weight on the streets and in the Bronx drill scene. That same reputation, which once brought fame and fear, now worked against him inside a system where respect is enforced through violence. Insiders say word of his sentence spread fast through the facility, and the atmosphere shifted almost instantly. In jail, status doesn't disappear. It follows you, and sometimes it brings consequences faster than anyone expects. According to reports, tensions escalated within hours. What started as verbal threats quickly turned physical, forcing guards to intervene before the situation spiraled completely out of control. While officials are tight-lipped, multiple sources suggest this wasn't a random incident. It was calculated, rooted in old rivalries, street politics, and the brutal reality of incarceration for high-profile inmates. In a place where weakness is punished, Kay Flock was immediately tested. Fans online were stunned. Many believed his biggest battle ended in the courtroom, but the truth is far more disturbing. Prison isn't just about serving time, it's about survival. Every move, every alliance, every reaction can determine whether someone makes it through unscathed. And for someone as notorious as Kay Flock, there is no such thing as anonymity. What makes this situation even more alarming is how fast it unfolded. There was no adjustment period, no chance to settle in. Violence erupted almost instantly, raising serious questions about inmate safety, protective custody, and whether Kay Flock can realistically survive long-term behind bars without further incidents. Some insiders claim this was just the beginning. In this video, we're breaking down exactly what allegedly happened after sentencing, why Kay Flock became an immediate target, and what this means for his future inside the system. From jail politics to unseen dangers fans never consider, this story goes far beyond the sentence itself. Stay locked in, because what's happening now may be even more dangerous than what led him here. The moment Kay Flock was processed into custody, everything about his reality changed. The courtroom drama may have ended, but a far more dangerous chapter began almost immediately. Inside jail, reputation doesn't reset. It follows you through the doors, through intake, and straight into the housing units. For someone as high-profile as Kay Flock, anonymity was never an option. Word of his sentence spread fast, and with it came attention from inmates who already knew his name, his affiliations, and the weight that came with them. In an environment built on hierarchy and perception, that alone was enough to create tension before he even settled in. Facilities are structured around control, but they are also ecosystems driven by power dynamics. High-profile inmates are often tested early, not necessarily because of personal grudges, but because status invites challenges. Insiders familiar with jail operations say that when someone enters with a reputation like Kay Flock's, eyes are immediately on them. Not just from rivals, but from people looking to establish dominance, earn respect, or send a message. That pressure doesn't wait days or weeks. It begins almost instantly, especially when the sentence is severe enough to signal that the person is going to be around for a long time. According to sources, the atmosphere around Kay Flock was tense from the start. Verbal exchanges, indirect threats, and subtle intimidation are common methods used to feel someone out. These moments don't always make headlines, but they set the stage for escalation. In jail, silence can be strategic, and reactions are closely watched. Every response is interpreted as strength, weakness, or uncertainty. For a young, famous inmate tied to street politics, those interpretations carry serious consequences. What many fans don't realize is that jail violence isn't always random or chaotic. It's often rooted in perception, alliances, and unresolved issues from the outside. Street conflicts don't disappear at the gates. They mutate. Old rivalries can resurface. Affiliations can create automatic enemies, and even neutral parties can become threats simply due to proximity or association. In K-Flock's case, his past, his music, and his public image all combined into a narrative that others inside were already reacting to. Correctional officers are trained to anticipate these risks, especially with inmates who attract attention. But prevention isn't always immediate or foolproof. Housing assignments, intake procedures, and classification systems take time, and those early hours can be the most volatile. Insiders say that during this period, tensions can spike quickly, especially if inmates believe they have something to prove or gain. That's when situations can escalate before staff fully intervene or separate individuals. The psychological toll of this environment is often overlooked. Going from a public figure with millions of eyes watching to a confined space where survival depends on awareness and restraint is a shock. Every sound, every movement, every interaction carries weight. There's no room for mistakes, and emotions have to be controlled at all times. For someone like K-Flock, the pressure isn't just physical, it's mental. The realization that the sentence is real, that freedom is gone, and that danger is now part of daily life hits fast and hard. Fans online often assume that once someone is sentenced, the story slows down. In reality, it accelerates. The courtroom may deliver the punishment, but the system delivers the experience. Jail is not designed for comfort or rehabilitation in those early stages. It's designed for containment. And within that containment, inmates create their own rules, expectations, and consequences. For a high-profile figure, navigating that world requires constant vigilance. This is why reports of immediate conflict didn't surprise those familiar with incarceration dynamics. When someone with K-Flock's background enters the system, the question isn't if there will be pressure, it's how intense it will be and how it will be managed. The first days are critical, often setting the tone for everything that follows. How someone is perceived early can shape their entire sentence. As the situation continued to unfold, attention turned to how officials would respond, whether protective measures would be taken, and what this meant for K-Flock's ability to serve his sentence without further incidents. Because inside those walls, the sentence isn't just measured in years, it's measured in how safely someone can endure them. And for K-Flock, the real battle had only just begun. As the initial shock of intake wore off, the situation around K-Flock grew more complicated rather than calmer. Inside jail, the first wave of tension often determines how the days ahead will unfold. And in his case, the pressure didn't fade, it intensified. Insiders describe an atmosphere where his presence alone shifted dynamics within the unit. People weren't just watching him, they were assessing him. Incarceration creates a constant evaluation process, where every move is read for meaning. And for someone with his level of notoriety, that scrutiny was relentless. One of the most dangerous elements for high-profile inmates is how quickly narratives form. Stories circulate fast behind bars, often exaggerated, distorted, or weaponized. Some inmates saw K-Flock as a symbol of street fame crashing into reality, others as an opportunity to make a name for themselves, and some as a walking reminder of unresolved conflict from the outside. None of those interpretations were neutral. Even without direct confrontation, the weight of those perceptions created non-stop psychological pressure, forcing him to stay alert at all times. Sources familiar with jail culture say this is where situations often escalate. It's not always a single moment, but a build-up, tension layered on top of tension. Subtle acts of intimidation, testing boundaries, and probing reactions are common during this phase. For inmates serving long sentences, establishing where someone's stand becomes important early on. Respect inside isn't granted automatically, and fame doesn't protect you. If anything, it makes you more visible. K-Flock's name, music, and past affiliations ensured that visibility was unavoidable. At the same time, correctional staff reportedly became more attentive. High-profile inmates require closer monitoring, not just for their own safety, but to prevent wider disturbances. Any incident involving a well-known figure can ripple through an entire facility, affecting housing units, staff response, and overall control. Officials are often forced to balance security with procedure, which can delay immediate protective measures. Those gaps, even brief ones, are where tension can boil over. Another factor insiders point to is isolation. Even when surrounded by people, jail can be deeply isolating, especially for someone whose life once revolved around crowds, attention, and movement. The sudden confinement, strict routines, and lack of control can heighten stress and emotional strain. Every day becomes a test of discipline, patience, and awareness. For Kay Flock, this adjustment period happened under extreme conditions, with the added weight of knowing the sentence wasn't temporary, it was life-altering. Online, fans debated whether reports of violence were exaggerated or inevitable. What many failed to understand is that jail doesn't wait for confirmation or clarity. Perception becomes reality quickly, and once someone is labeled, whether accurately or not, it shapes how others respond to them. In that sense, Kay Flock wasn't just reacting to people. He was reacting to a version of himself that existed in the minds of others, shaped by rumors, music, and street mythology. This phase marked a crucial turning point. How officials handled the situation, whether separation or protective measures were considered, and how Kay Flock adapted mentally would all determine what came next. Jail survival isn't about aggression alone. It's about restraint, awareness, and timing. One wrong response can escalate a situation beyond control, while one smart move can prevent months of problems. As days passed, the question wasn't just whether violence had occurred, but what it signaled for the future. Would this be an isolated incident, or the beginning of ongoing danger? For those who understand the system, the answer depended on how quickly stability could be restored. For Kay Flock, the reality was clear. The sentence was only the beginning, and the environment he was now in would demand constant vigilance every single day. As the situation continued to unfold, it became clear that what happened early on was not just a one-off incident, but a warning of the environment Kay Flock was now forced to survive in. Inside jail, first impressions don't fade easily. They harden. Once an inmate is identified as high-profile, dangerous, or vulnerable, that label sticks. Insiders say that after the initial tension, the atmosphere around Kay Flock settled into something even more dangerous: quiet pressure. And in jail culture, silence is often worse than noise. Rather than constant confrontation, the next phase was about positioning. Inmates began watching patterns: when he moved, who he spoke to, where he sat, how guards reacted around him. These details matter because jail politics are built on information. Knowledge becomes leverage. For someone serving an extreme sentence, others assume desperation, and desperation can attract challenges. Not necessarily because of personal hatred, but because people inside are always looking for advantage, protection, or reputation. Sources familiar with incarceration dynamics explain that violence in these environments is often strategic. It's rarely emotional. It's about timing, opportunity, and message sending. When a known name like Kay Flock enters the system, people around him consider what interacting with him might earn them: respect, fear, or status. Even inmates with no prior connection may feel pressure to engage simply because association alone carries weight. This creates a constant state of alert where danger doesn't always announce itself. At the same time, correctional staff reportedly increased monitoring, aware that any further incident could spiral quickly. High-profile inmates create liability for facilities. Any harm draws attention, scrutiny, and questions about safety procedures. But INCRAD observation doesn't eliminate risk. It just changes how conflict manifests. Instead of open confrontation, Tion can build beneath the surface, waiting for the smallest trick. Another overlooked element is the mental strain. Serving a massive sentence hits in Aves. The first shock is disbelief. The second is realization. By this stage, the reality begins to settle. This isn't temporary. This isn't a phase. This is life now. For Kay Flock, that realization came while navigating an environment where emotional vulnerability is dangerous. Showing stress, fear, or frustration can be interpreted as weakness, even when it's natural. ANS often imagine jail violence as constant chores, but insiders describe it as controlling and predictability. Most OE time, nothing happens until suddenly it does. That uncertainty wears people down. Sleep becomes lighter. Awareness never switches off. Every day becomes AB avoiding the wrong place at the wrong time. For someone with his background ND visibility, THA mental pressure is relentless. Meanwhile, stories about him continued circulating both inside and outside the facility. In jail, information doesn't need to be true to be powerful. Rumors and influence behavior just as much as facts. Though exaggerated or not, narratives surrounding K. Flock shaped how others approached him. In that sense, he wasn't just serving a sentence. He was serving an image that followed him everywhere. By this point, it was clear that survival would depend on strategy, restraint, and how quickly stability could be established around him. The early days had set a tone, and undoing that tone is far harder than preventing it. Every decision moving forward, housing placement, interactions, alliances, would matter. This stage marked a shift from shock to endurance. The question was no longer whether jail life would be difficult. That was already answered. The real question was whether this environment would remain manageable, or whether further incidents were inevitable. Because once jail politics lock in, they rarely loosen without consequences. By the time the situation reached this stage, the dynamic around K. Flock had fully transformed. What began as shock and immediate chaos had evolved into something colder, more calculated. Inside jail, once the initial reactions fade, a new reality takes over: hierarchy. And hierarchy inside is unforgiving. Everyone is constantly assessing where they stand and where others stand in relation to them. For someone like K. Flock, there was no neutral position. His name alone placed him under a microscope. At this point, sources say the focus shifted from open tension to long-term control. In jail, control isn't about dominance through constant violence. It's about predictability, knowing who is safe, who is not, and what lines cannot be crossed. The problem for high-profile inmates is that predictability works against them. Others assume attention equals opportunity. Some see association as protection. Others see conflict as a shortcut to recognition. That balance creates a pressure cooker environment where calm can feel more dangerous than chaos. Another factor quietly influencing everything was the paperwork. In jail culture, what's written matters. Charges, rumors of cooperation, sentencing details, all of it circulates. Even misinformation can spark real consequences. Guards may see paperwork as administrative, but inmates see it as identity. Every whispered claim, whether true or false, becomes fuel. And once a narrative takes hold, reversing it is almost impossible. This is where isolation becomes both a shield and a threat. Keeping distance can reduce immediate danger, but it also makes someone appear detached or unapproachable. In jail politics, being too quiet can raise just as many red flags as being too loud. People begin to wonder, is he protected? Is he connected? Is he off limits? Those questions don't bring safety. They bring curiosity, and curiosity inside can turn reckless fast. Mental endurance became the real battle during this phase. Physical altercations grab headlines, but psychological pressure does the most damage. Days blend together. Time moves differently. Every interaction carries weight. Even casual conversations can be interpreted as alliances. One wrong assumption can change how dozens of people see you. 4K Flock. Navigating this required constant calculation. When to speak, when to stay silent, when to respond, when to ignore. Correctional staff, meanwhile, had their own balancing act. Protecting a high-profile inmate without making it obvious is difficult. Too much protection can create resentment. Too little creates risk. Facilities are designed for order, not fame. And when someone brings outside notoriety inside, it disrupts that balance. Officers reportedly adjusted movement schedules, seating arrangements, and monitoring routines. Subtle changes meant to reduce friction without drawing attention. Outside the walls, fans continued speculating wildly. Social media filled gaps with imagination. But inside, the reality was slower, heavier, and far more suffocating. There were no dramatic speeches, no constant fights, just the grinding awareness that every day would be like this. That this wasn't about surviving one incident, but surviving years. By now, K-Flock wasn't reacting anymore. He was adapting. Adaptation is survival in jail. It means accepting limits, controlling emotions, and understanding that reputation is currency. Every choice either stabilizes your position or destabilizes it. And once destabilized, recovery is rare. This phase made one thing painfully clear. The sentence didn't just lock him away from the outside world. It forced him into an entirely new one with its own rules, consequences, and invisible traps. And the deeper he moved into that world, the harder it would be to ever reclaim a sense of normalcy. What came next would depend on whether this fragile balance could hold, or whether one moment would shatter it completely. By the time everything settled into its so-called routine, the truth became impossible to ignore. Jail wasn't reacting to K-Flock anymore. It had fully absorbed him. This is the stage most people never talk about. Not the headline moment, not the initial violence, but the long stretch afterward, where survival becomes quiet, internal, and relentless. This is where sentences actually start to feel real. Inside, time stops behaving normally. Weeks feel like months, months feel endless. The adrenaline fades, and what replaces it is a constant low-level tension that never fully disappears. K-Flock's name still carried weight, but weight doesn't always mean power. Sometimes it means gravity, everything negative slowly drifting toward you. Attention never fully goes away. Eyes always linger a second too long. Conversations pause when you enter a space. Even silence feels loud. At this stage, reputation management became everything. One wrong rumor, one misunderstood interaction, and years of careful balance could collapse overnight. In jail, you don't just defend yourself physically, you defend your narrative. Who you are, what you stand for, what you're accused of, whether people believe you're solid or questionable. Those judgments are made fast and rarely revised. What made this especially dangerous was boredom. Boredom inside is not peaceful, it's volatile. When there's nothing to do, people look for stimulation, and conflict becomes entertainment. For high-profile inmates, that's when risks spike again. Not because of planned attacks, but because someone decides to test boundaries just to break the monotony. A stare, a comment, a rumor. That's how things ignite. Emotionally, this was the most punishing phase. There's no shock left to hide behind. No denial, just reality. The understanding that this isn't temporary discomfort, it's a lifestyle now. Birthdays pass. Music drops without you. Streets move on. Fans argue online while you're stuck counting meals and lights out hours. That disconnect slowly eats at a person's identity. Sources suggest this is where K-Flock became noticeably more withdrawn. Not weak, but guarded. Strategic, less reactive. In jail, reacting is expensive. Every response carries consequences you can't see coming. So you learn to absorb, to observe, to exist without drawing unnecessary heat. That kind of self-control doesn't come naturally. It's built through pressure. The scariest part? There's no finish line. No moment where you win jail. You just survive it day by day. And even on calm days, the possibility of chaos is always one misunderstanding away. That awareness never turns off. It follows you to your bunk, to the chow hall, to sleep. By this point, the violence wasn't the headline anymore. The endurance was. The psychological toll. The slow reshaping of a person under constant scrutiny and confinement. This wasn't about one fight, one attack, or one incident. This was about what happens to someone when the world forgets. But the walls never let you. And that's the reality most people never see. The part after the shock fades, when the real sentence begins. If this story changed the way you see K-Flock's situation, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter as it unfolds. Hit the like button if you want more real, unfiltered breakdowns of what actually happens after the headlines fade. Drop a comment below. Do you think jail hardens artists like K-Flock, or does it strip away who they really are? Share this video with someone who still believes the story ends at sentencing. And remember, The loudest part of the fall isn't the impact, it's the silence that follows.